have a reggae my light is. I say what? Doctor said, son, you have a reggae my light is. In a me bone. Blood, yeah. From my toes, yeah, up to my brain,
Bigheart 92.1 FM.
A very beautiful morning to you. Yes, good morning, Asaba. Good morning, Delta. Good morning, Nigeria. It's TGIF. Yes. Thank God it's Friday and you're listening to Bigheart 92.1 FM, the station that beats for you. Welcome to the Daily Brief with me, Marvellous Akpenyi. And it's Friday, July 17, 2026. And today we'll be rounding up the week with papers. And over the next 25 minutes, we'll bring you the biggest headlines making the front pages of today's newspapers. And yes, we'll be starting with the first paper for review this morning, and that will be the Vanguard newspaper. Starting with the Vanguard newspaper this morning, we have PFIPC. Badger slams 15 billion naira suit against Adeyemi. PFIPC. Badger slams 15 billion naira suit against Adeyemi. Says he never met defendant. Denies bribery, abuse of office. Allegations caused grave damage to my personal, professional reputation. Denies receiving 400 million naira directly or indirectly. That's on PFIPC. Badger slams 15 billion naira suit against Adeyemi. All right, and still on, we have Achimugu Court grants final forfeiture of 4.6 billion naira jewelries, 4.3 billion naira exotic cars, $50,000 and 30 million naira to federal government. Achimugu Court grants final forfeiture of 4.6 billion naira jewelries, 4.3 billion naira exotic cars, $50,000 and 30 million naira to federal government. And then also we have importers to increase depot petrol price. Importers to increase depot petrol price to 1,350 naira per litre. And that's on page 28 of the Vanguard. Importers to increase depot petrol price to 1,350 naira per litre. And then also on the Vanguard, we have why Tinubu must overhaul football administration. That's coming from experts. Why Tinubu must overhaul football administration, coming from experts. And it says stakeholders John Terry, Obi Michael, Efe Soje, Tana Ayejina, Odion Igalo lament. You can find that on page 21 of the Vanguard. Also, we have from charity to rights. We have rights. We are not asking for favors. From charity to rights. We have rights. We are not asking for favors. That's on page 19 of the Vanguard. Kidnapped Kogi students rescued. That's coming from Kogi State government. Yesterday, we had reported that NECO students had been kidnapped in Kogi, including their teachers and NECO officials. But now the Kogi State government have come out to say that they have been rescued. That's on page 6 of the Vanguard. 2027, INEC to conduct mock presidential poll to audit systems too. 2027, INEC to conduct mock presidential poll to audit systems too. That's on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, that's it on Vanguard. Now let's move on to The Guardian, where it says food security paradox. How hungry Nigeria loses 38 million tons to poor post-harvest plan. Food security paradox. How hungry Nigeria loses 38 million tons to poor post-harvest plan. That's on the big stories 4 and 5 of The Guardian. And then we also have Achimugu court orders for feature of 4.6 billion naira jewelry, 4.3 billion naira cars, and others. We have NANS. NAUS insists on autopsy, demand probe of Habila's death. That's on the news page 29. We have right there that NAUS insists on autopsy, demand probe of Habila's death. That's on page 29 of The Guardian. Gbajabiamila slams 15 billion naira suit on Adeyemi as group demands probe of PFIPC scandal. Gbajabiamila slams 15 billion naira suits on Adeyemi as group demands probe of PFIPC scandal. That's on page 3 of The Guardian. Federal government unveils $3 billion social protection, human capital development initiatives. Federal government unveils $3 billion social protection and human capital development initiatives. And you can find that on the news page 3 of The Guardian. US welcomes talks on country of concern designation as Garcia ends visit. US welcomes talks on country of concern designation as Garcia ends visit. That's on page 3 of The Guardian. Mixed reactions trail appeal court ruling restoring INEC timetable. Mixed reactions trail appeal court ruling restoring INEC timetable, and that's on page 6 of The Guardian. New Nigeria roadmap. Obi prioritizes education, healthcare in policy blueprint. New Nigeria roadmap. Obi prioritizes education, healthcare in policy blueprint, and it's on page 7 of The Guardian. Osun polls. Oni warns against bloodshed as gunmen kill 2, injure 6 in fresh attack. Osun polls. Oni warns against bloodshed as gunmen kill 2, injure 6 in fresh attack. And that's on page 29 of The Guardian. CBN tightens noose on foreign exchange dealers caps weekly purchase at $150,000. CBN tightens news on FX dealers, caps weekly purchases as $150,000. Troops rescue Kogi NECO exam victims hours after abductors demand 10 million naira. Troops rescue Kogi NECO exam victims just hours after abductors demand 10 million naira. All right, now let's move on to the Nation newspaper, where it says Umahi police insist on autopsy on Habila's body despite family's opposition. And that's on page 27 of the Nation. Umahi police insist on autopsy on Habila's body despite family's opposition. That's on page 27. 6 months to presidential poll. INEC raises preparation tempo. 6 months to presidential poll. INEC raises preparation tempo. Agency to clean up 100 million voter list with NIMC data. An appeal court OK's election timeline. That's on the Nation newspaper. You can find that on page 4. Also, we have court orders Achimogo to forfeit 4.6 billion naira assets. And away from that, we have Akeboro Akangbe Okusanya in race to lead NBA. That's on page 2 of the Nation newspaper. All right, and Olatunji Dare at 82, a former associate reminisces. Oyebanji promises even development in Oshun. And finally, on the Nation, we have Tinubu launches $3.05 billion poverty reduction plan. Tinubu launches $3.05 billion poverty reduction plan. And that's on the Nation newspaper this morning. All right, and finally, let's move on to the Punch newspaper, where it says autonomy battle, states defy Supreme Court, control 10 trillion naira local government allocations. Autonomy battle, states defy Supreme Court, control 10 trillion naira local government allocations. 2 years after Supreme Court judgment, states still control local government funds. That's coming from Noge and Algon leaders. All right, and we have local government autonomy stalls as joint account system survives in most states. Local government autonomy stalls as joint account system survives in most states. Local governments FAAC allocation jumps 33% 2 years after Supreme Court verdict. All right, that's it on autonomy battle as states defy Supreme Court and control 10 trillion naira local government allocations. Still on the Punch, we have Senate bans preaching and hawking in commercial buses. Senate bans preaching, hawking in commercial buses. Okay, and then we have 2027 election. INEC unveils mock presidential poll plan. You can find that on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. 2027 election. INEC unveils mock presidential poll plan. That's on page 7. Tinubu approves Lagos-Ibadan Expressway reconstruction. Tinubu approves Lagos-Ibadan Expressway reconstruction. And that's on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. And still on the Punch, we have Kogi rescues abducted principal, NECO official, and 2 students. Kogi rescues abducted principal, NECO officials, and 2 students. And we have nurse's death. Umahi police fight bid to stop autopsy. Nurse's death. Umahi police fight bid to stop autopsy. And that's on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. right, we've taken a couple of papers this morning. We've taken stories from The Punch, The Guardian, The Nation, and Vanguard newspaper. Now, let's just take a brief look at some of the stories that made the big headlines on the papers this morning. And from The Punch, we had States defy Supreme Court, control 10 trillion naira local government allocations. Now, The Punch states that despite last year's landmark Supreme Court judgment granting financial autonomy to local governments, many state governments are still reportedly controlling council allocations through the joint account system. And according to the report, local government allocations have risen significantly, yet many council chairmen reportedly do not have direct access to the funds. And stakeholders, including Algon and Norge, argue that local government autonomy remains largely on paper, just on paper, and not in reality. Well, the Supreme Court ruling was expected to strengthen grassroots governance if local governments truly become financially independent. But, well, should the federal government do more to enforce stricter compliance with the Supreme Court judgment? I mean, who knows what could have happened? But unfortunately, well, nothing has happened yet. It's just on plain paper. And then also on The Nation, we had 6 months to presidential poll. INEC raises preparation tempo, and that's because INEC says that preparations for the 2027 presidential election have intensified, and the commission plans to clean up the voters register using NIMC data while continuing voter education and electoral reforms. And also making the front page is President Tinubu's launch of $3.05 billion poverty reduction program. All right, and I believe that election credibility begins long before election day. Cleaning the voter register and improving technology can increase public confidence in the entire electoral process. Okay, so all you have to do on your part, get your PVCs, go out to vote on the election day, and then INEC on their part will do all they have to do. All right, and still on, let's move on to the big story on The Guardian newspaper that said how hungry Nigeria loses 38 million tons to poor post-harvest plan. And The Guardian paper highlights Nigeria's enormous food losses caused by inadequate storage facilities, poor transportation networks, limited processing capacity, and weak logistics. Let's take a vegetable like let's take a plant like the tomato plant. You plant and then you harvest and then you take to the market. Just the distance from taking your tomatoes from the farm to the market, you find that most of them have broken. And then after the sales of the day, there's just so many that's left unsold. They begin to rot away because there are no proper facilities to store them. And this is a country that's actually very hungry. So we have to invest in ways that can make it better. This story reminds us that food insecurity isn't just about production. If farmers lose a large percentage of what they harvest before it even reaches consumers, food prices would naturally continue to increase. All right, so investment in maybe cold storage, better roads, better processing facilities, and all of that may significantly reduce food wastage in our country, Nigeria. Okay, and before we go, we'll just take a look at one story that made headline on the Vanguard newspaper, where Gbajabiamila slammed 15 billion naira suit against Adeyemi. So the former speaker and chief of staff to the president, Femi Gbajabiamila, reportedly dismissed allegations made against him by the former director of the Director General of the Presidential Foreign Intervention Protocol, that's the PFIPC, Prince Adeyemi. And the paper reports that he denies ever meeting the defendant or receiving financial inducement. And then also he said he never met him, he never received 400 million naira from him. Okay, so the legal dispute involving public officials is expected to be resolved in court. So we'll just let the court handle that. Well, that's as much as we can take on today's program. I hope it's been enlightening and informing for you as it has been for me. That's how we wrap it up on the Daily Brief for the week. Thank you for always starting your mornings with us here on Bigheart 92.1 FM, the only station that beats for you. And have a safe weekend. If it rains, don't forget to drive carefully. Up next is our musical session to take you into the weekend. Don't touch that dial. I'll be back on Monday, 8 a.m. God bless you. God bless Delta. And God bless Nigeria. You're going to be listening to the song Reggae Strong by Lucky Dube. Don't go away.
Reggae in the bathroom, reggae in the bedroom, reggae everywhere. Reggae in jail, reggae in church.